I never thought I'd be the woman who tore apart one of America's wealthiest families. They had his entire life planned, the perfect society wedding, merging two dynasties. But when our eyes met that rainy night, neither of us knew we'd risk everything, even his billion-dollar inheritance, for love. You know those moments that change everything? That split second when your life divides into before and after? Mine happened on a Tuesday. Just an ordinary Tuesday in November, with rain hammering against the museum windows and the kind of chill that seeps into your bones. I was the last one there, as usual. The other curators teased me about practically living at the museum, but they didn't understand what this place meant to me. Growing up, art was my escape. My mom would take me to free museum days when she could afford the bus fare, and I'd stand for hours in front of paintings that made me feel something. Anything. Now here I was, with my own key card and a small office with my name on the door. Olivia Johnson, Associate Curator. It wasn't much by their standards. There, being the wealthy donors whose names adorned the wings and galleries I carefully tended. People like the Whitfield family, whose generous contributions essentially paid my salary. Old money, the kind of wealth that spans generations and comes with its own set of rules. I knew about James Whitfield, of course. Everyone in the art world did. Heir to the Whitfield fortune, board member at 29, engaged to Victoria Astor, merging two of the most powerful families on the East Coast. Their wedding announcement had made the society pages look like a royal proclamation. I'd rolled my eyes when I saw it, another predictable chapter in lives that seemed to follow a script written before they were even born. That night, I was cataloging a new collection, losing myself in the brushstrokes of emerging artists when I heard footsteps echoing through the empty gallery. My heart jumped. We weren't expecting anyone after hours. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding smaller than I intended, and then he appeared like something out of a painting himself. Tall, with rain-dampened hair and a suit that probably cost more than my rent. But it was his eyes that caught me, tired eyes, with something like desperation hiding behind them. "I'm sorry," he said, looking genuinely apologetic. "The security guard knows me. I just needed somewhere quiet." James Whitfield in the flesh, standing in my gallery looking lost. I should have been intimidated. This man's family could have me fired with a phone call. Instead, I found myself saying, "The quiet is why I stay late too." He smiled then, and something shifted in the air between us. "That Basquiat piece," he said, nodding toward the wall I'd been facing. "It's speaking to you?" Most wealthy patrons I'd met could name drop artists but couldn't tell you why the art mattered. They collected pieces like trophies. But when James started talking about the raw emotion in Basquiat's work, the controlled chaos and meaning behind it, I realized he actually saw what I saw. "Would you like some terrible coffee?" I offered, surprising myself. "The good stuff gets locked up with the daytime staff." We sat on the bench in front of that Basquiat for hours. He talked about growing up surrounded by priceless art that no one in his family really looked at. I told him about discovering my love for art in overcrowded public schools where art programs were always the first budget cuts. "My family sees art as investment," he said, his voice tight, "or worse, status." "And what do you see it as?" I asked. He looked at me then, really looked at me like no one had ever asked him that question before. "Freedom," he said simply. When he finally checked his watch, he looked surprised, even disappointed. "I have a dinner with my fiancé's family." Reality crashed back. Of course he did. Men like him always had somewhere important to be, someone important to meet. "Of course," I said, professional smile firmly back in place. "I should finish up here anyway." At the door he paused. "Thank you, Olivia." This was the first real conversation I've had in, I can't remember how long. After he left, I stood in the empty gallery, my heart beating too fast. I told myself it was nothing, just two people talking about art. I told myself to forget the way his eyes lit up when he spoke about things he loved, or how for a few hours, the enormous gap between our worlds seemed to vanish. I told myself all these things because I had to. Because men like James Whitfield didn't change course. They followed the path laid out for them, married the women chosen for them, and lived the lives expected of them. And women like me? We knew better than to believe in fairy tales. But as I locked up that night, walking through the rain to catch my bus, something had changed. I just didn't know yet how that ordinary Tuesday would ripple through both our lives, pulling us toward each other despite everything that stood in our way. 3 weeks passed. I convinced myself that night was nothing, a random encounter, forgotten as soon as he stepped back into his real life. I buried myself in work, preparing for our upcoming exhibition of emerging artists from underrepresented communities, a project I'd fought hard to secure funding for. Then, on the night of the exhibition preview, I saw him again. I was explaining a mixed media piece to a potential donor when I felt it, that strange electric awareness that someone was watching me. I turned and there he was, standing at the gallery entrance, those same intense eyes finding mine across the room. My words faltered mid-sentence. "Excuse me," I managed to say to the confused donor. "I need to greet a board member." Each step toward him felt like walking through water, slow, dreamlike, inevitable. "Mr. Whitfield," I said formally, aware of curious eyes. "I didn't expect to see you tonight." "I saw your name on the exhibition materials," he said quietly. "Your vision for this show, it's extraordinary." Before I could respond, a woman appeared at his side, tall, blonde, flawless, Victoria Astor. Her diamond engagement ring caught the light, practically blinding me. "Darling, introduce me," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. That night changed everything. I watched him perform the role he was born to play, charming heir, perfect fiancé. But I also saw the moments when the mask slipped, when his eyes sought mine across the crowded room. Later, as the event wound down, he found me alone in the small office where I was tallying donation pledges. "I shouldn't be here," he said, closing the door behind him. "No, you shouldn't," I agreed, heart hammering. "I can't stop thinking about our conversation, about you." "You're engaged," I reminded us both. "To someone I've known since childhood, someone my parents and her parents chose." His voice broke slightly. "Do you know what it's like to have your entire life mapped out by others? To never make a single decision that's truly yours?" I didn't, but I could see the prison he lived in, golden bars, but a prison nonetheless. "What are you asking from me?" I whispered. "Nothing, everything." He stepped closer. "Just see me, not the Whitfield heir, just James." When he left, I sat alone in that tiny office, trembling. Because in that moment, I knew we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. And the terrifying part wasn't that he might break my heart. It was that I might break his world. What started as chance turned into something deliberate. James began appearing at every museum event. He joined the acquisitions committee, volunteered for the education outreach program I ran on weekends. To everyone else, he was just a dedicated board member. Only we knew the truth. "Coffee to discuss the new installation?" He'd text, or "Need your expertise on this artist." Thin excuses that fooled no one, least of all ourselves. We'd meet in quiet corners of the museum, in out-of-the-way cafes where no one knew him. We talked about everything: his dreams of starting his own foundation for arts education, my childhood in South Chicago, books we loved, places we wanted to see. Hours disappeared when we were together. "You're the only person who doesn't want something from me," he told me once, his fingers nearly touching mine on the table between us. But my friend Tasha saw right through it. "Girl, you're playing with fire," she warned over wine in my tiny apartment. "Men like him don't leave women like her for women like us. That's not how this story ends." I knew she was right. I'd seen the society pages, the photos of James and Victoria at galas, charity events, family functions, the perfect power couple. When their wedding announcement appeared with a June date, it felt like a physical blow. "It's just a friendship," I lied to Tasha, to myself. Then came the Whitfield Foundation Gala. As the museum's representative, I couldn't avoid attending. I wore my one good dress, steeled my nerves, and entered their world. The Whitfield estate took my breath away: sprawling gardens, chandeliers dripping with crystals, old money everywhere I looked. I felt the stares, heard the whispers. "Who is she? Why is she here?" Then I met his mother. "Ah, the curator James speaks so highly of," Mrs. Whitfield said, her smile arctic. "How refreshing to have new faces at our events." Her eyes assessed everything: my dress, my hair, my skin, and found it all wanting. "James has always had a charitable spirit," she continued. His work with your little community program is so admirable. Every word was a perfectly placed knife. Later, I overheard them arguing in the library, James and his mother, their voices carrying through the partially open door. Don't embarrass this family, she hissed. Whatever fascination you have with that girl ends now. Victoria's father is watching you, and the merger depends on this marriage. Her name is Olivia, James said, his voice tight with anger. And she's worth 10 of? I didn't stay to hear the rest. I slipped away, heart pounding, the truth finally inescapable. I wasn't just risking my heart anymore, I was risking his entire future. I tried to pull away after that night, stopped answering his texts, made excuses when he came to the museum, put distance between us that felt like tearing off my own skin. Then the email arrived, an offer from the Chicago Institute of Art. The position I'd dreamed of but never thought I'd get. Curator of modern American art with creative control and double my current salary. A way out, a reason to leave, I accepted immediately. That night I sat on my fire escape, watching the city lights and wondering why the opportunity of a lifetime felt like punishment. My phone buzzed James again. I finally answered. I'm leaving, I said, the words spilling out before hello. I got a job in Chicago. I'm going home. Silence stretched between us, heavy with everything unsaid. When? His voice sounded hollow. 3 weeks, more silence. Then, we need to talk, not on the phone. There's nothing to talk about, I insisted. You're getting married in 2 months. I'm leaving. It's better this way. But the next day, he was waiting outside the museum, leaning against his car like a man with nothing to lose. One drive, he said. That's all I'm asking. We ended up at the coast, watching waves crash against rocks in the fading light. So different from the carefully controlled spaces we usually occupied. I tried, Olivia, he said finally. I've been trying my whole life to be who they want me to be, the perfect son, the perfect heir. I'm suffocating. What about Victoria? I asked. She knows. His voice was quiet. She's always known this wasn't real. We're friends who have been pushed together since childhood. She's in love with someone else too, someone her parents would never approve of. I turned to him, shocked. Then why? Money, power, dynasty? He laughed bitterly. The Whitfield store merger, like we're companies, not people. The sun disappeared beneath the horizon, leaving us in deepening shadow. If I break the engagement, I lose everything, my inheritance, my position, my family. The weight of his words hung between us. Billions of dollars, a lifetime of privilege. His entire identity. I would never ask you to give that up, I whispered, the truth breaking my heart. Not for me. He reached for my hand in the darkness. What if I want to? And there it was, the impossible choice. Stay and watch him sacrifice everything, or leave and save us both from the wreckage that would follow. Either way, someone's heart would shatter. I just didn't know yet whose it would be. My apartment was half packed, cardboard boxes stacked like monuments to a life I was leaving behind. 1 week until Chicago, 1 week until I could start forgetting. The knock came at midnight, 3 sharp raps that echoed through my tiny space. I knew who it was before I opened the door. James stood there, rain-soaked and wild-eyed, different from the polished air I first met. This man was raw, unraveled. I broke it off, he said, water dripping from his hair onto my welcome mat. I told them everything. The world tilted beneath my feet. You did what? He stepped inside, bringing the storm with him. I couldn't do it, Olivia. I couldn't marry her knowing what I feel for you. What happened? My voice barely a whisper. Exactly what I expected. His laugh was hollow. My father gave me an ultimatum. Return to Victoria and the fold, or lose everything, my inheritance, my position, even my name. James, the weight of it crushed my chest. Your whole life was never mine to begin with. His voice cracked. Don't you see? Every privilege came with golden handcuffs. Every dollar with conditions. He paced my small living room, a caged animal suddenly free and terrified. You can't throw everything away, not for me. I fought back tears. You don't know what it's like to struggle, to count every dollar, to be nobody. He stopped, turned to me, then teach me. You'll resent me when the reality hits. The only reality I care about is this. He took my hands. I've lived in a beautiful prison my entire life. Meeting you, for the first time I could breathe. Rain lashed against my windows, the storm outside matching the one within. "They'll never accept me," I said, the truth we'd been dancing around. "Not just because I'm not from your world, because I'm black, you know that. Then we build our own world." His grip tightened. "I have some savings they can't touch. I have ideas, connections outside the family. It won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is." The words slipped out before I could stop them. In that moment, standing in my half-packed apartment with a billionaire who'd just given up everything, I made my choice. Not the safe one, not the sensible one. The terrifying, exhilarating, possibly disastrous one. "Chicago has room for two," I whispered. When he kissed me, it felt like jumping off a cliff, and flying. 6 months can change everything. Our apartment in Chicago isn't much. A two-bedroom walk-up in Hyde Park, nothing like the mansions and penthouses James grew up in. But it's ours, paid for with my museum salary and the last of his personal savings. The headlines were brutal at first. "Whitfield heir abandons billion-dollar dynasty for museum curator." "Society wedding of the year implodes." "Whitfield store merger collapses amid family scandal." James read them all, face impassive, then deleted the news apps from his phone. His family cut him off completely, financially, emotionally, legally. His father's attorneys delivered a single box of personal items and paperwork removing him from the family trust. His mother sent back his letters unopened. Only his younger sister Emma secretly reaches out, sending text messages from burner phones that change every few weeks. "They'll come around," she promises. We don't believe her, but we appreciate the hope. Victoria, surprisingly, became an ally. Free from her own gilded cage, she introduced her actual love, her female personal assistant of 3 years, to the shocked society pages. She sends us occasional texts, usually memes about scandalized rich people. We've bonded over being the family disappointments. Meanwhile, James is building something from scratch. He leveraged his knowledge and connections to start a consulting firm, connecting emerging artists with ethical investors. No family money, no family name, just his talent and vision. Some nights I find him at the kitchen table at 3 a.m., surrounded by spreadsheets, eyes bloodshot. "Is it worth it?" I asked once, terrified of the answer. He looked up, surprised. "I've never worked this hard in my life," he said. Then he smiled, that real smile I first saw in a quiet museum gallery. "I've never been this happy." We still face sideways glances when we're out together. Chicago might be more diverse than his world was, but prejudice doesn't disappear with a change of zip code. James notices every stare, every whispered comment, in a way he never would have before. Sometimes it angers him. Mostly, it strengthens his resolve. "They think they know our story," he says, squeezing my hand as we walk past someone's obvious disapproval. "They have no idea. Our story isn't perfect. We argue about money. He's learning budgeting. I'm learning to accept occasional splurges. His family's rejection cuts deep, no matter how he pretends otherwise. My family worries he'll eventually return to his world, leaving me behind. But every night, I fall asleep beside a man who chose love over dynasty, authenticity over expectation. And I wouldn't change a word of our story."